All right, so this is a continuation of section 5.6. We were just talking about synthetic division, and we were using that as a shortcut instead of long division. Remember that you can only use it if it's the divisor is in the format x minus r. And we talked about how if the remainder is 0, that means that the divisor is a factor of the thing that you were dividing by into, the dividend, okay? So that's what's under this box here, the factor theorem. So this is in math words, what we just said yesterday. The factor theorem says that the binomial x minus r is a factor of p of x, right, the polynomial in the numerator, if and only if, IFF, right, it's not a typo, if and only if the p of r equals 0. Right? So what that means is that when you put your r on the outside and you do your synthetic division, you get a 0 here, right? If you get a 0 here at the end, then your x minus r is a factor. So question number 10 says, determine whether x plus 3 is a factor of this f of x cubic polynomial. If it is, find the remaining factors, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this is our x minus r. We're going to take the r value, which is -3, it's the opposite, and we're going to do synthetic division. So 2, 11, 18, 9, right? Go ahead, pause the video, and figure out the rest of this synthetic division here. Okay, so you get a 0 at the end. So this is your indication, yes, it is a factor. X plus 3 is a factor because we got a remainder of 0, right? So because, if it's an explain, because f of -3 is equal to 0. That's this part over here, right? F of -3 is equal to 0. So x plus 3 is a factor. If it is, find the remaining factors. So what we're going to do is bring down our answer, decrease by a degree. So 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. And then we're going to factor this, right? Old school, just double bubble. So take this thing and factor it. So I know it has to be 2x and x. Not many choices here. To multiply to make 3, 3 and 1. I know it has to be plus plus, just checking my loops. Yep, that makes 5x. So these are the other factors. I'm going to bring down my original factor, x plus 3, right? The one that I said, yes, it's a factor. I'm going to bring that down, right? So these are all the factors. So you can write it like this, or you can say the other factors are, 2x plus 3 and x plus 1. I think the textbook writes it like this when the question is asked this way, right? So I'll accept this answer, I'll accept this answer. Let's try another one. Ooh, these directions are different. Factor the polynomial function, given that f of 2 equals 0. So notice the difference. This question was asking yes or no, is it a factor? And then if so, find the remaining factors. Question 11 is saying, we want to factor this, right? Our goal is to factor this, but they're giving you a clue. They're saying, use this given piece of information, okay? This can be factored using the grouping method. We're not doing that right now, okay? For the sake of practicing this problem, please do not use grouping method because in the future, I'm going to give you problems where a grouping method doesn't work, right? So what does this given tell us, right? What is this given saying? This given is saying that x minus 2 is a factor. That's what that means. If you look at the factor theorem again, right? If we have something that equals 0, that means that the x minus r was a factor. So if this is a 0, the x minus 2, the opposite number, is a factor, right? That also tells us another thing. It also means that x equals 2 is a 0. Okay, it's another interesting piece of information, just a side note for another section of the chapter. So what we're going to do is we're going to do synthetic division again. We're going to put our 2 on the outside. This is where it starts to get a little confusing. Why the number 2? I thought we did the opposite, right? But no, x minus 2 is the factor. We're doing the opposite of the factor, opposite of the binomial, x minus 2. The f of 2 equals 0 is the same number, okay? So I'm going to put my numbers here, my coefficients, and go ahead and figure out the synthetic division. Pause and go ahead and do that. Now, this should not be a surprise that you got 0 here. It told us, the original problem told us that f of 2 equals 0. This was supposed to happen, okay? If you didn't get 0 here, you should be very concerned. All right, so remember what our goal is. Our goal is to factor. So we're going to bring down, decrease by a degree. Notice I have a 0 here. I'm going to write it as 0x for a second. No remainder. So I'm just going to clean this up. This is just x squared minus 9, right? Our goal is to factor this thing. So now I'm going to take this and just keep factoring. X squared minus 9, I can factor that as a difference of 2 squares. And now, this is the thing people forget. Don't forget to bring that x minus 2 down into your final answer. So this f of x function factors to make this x plus 3, x minus 3, x minus 2 answer, okay? If you want to try it with grouping method, you can go ahead and do that now. Take f of x and factor it with grouping method. You would get the same exact final answer. This is my final answer. If you forget the x minus 2, it's a big deal because this yellow final answer should multiply out to go back to that f of x function, right? And without the x minus 2, it's not going to do that. All right, one more problem. Go ahead and see if you can do it on your own. Pause the video and see if you can do this. All right, so this question told us that x minus 3 is a factor. So in your final answer, you might want to already say x minus 3. The other thing that this tells us is that f of 3 is going to get us 0. So actually in this case, it's g of 3. So I'm going to do synthetic division with a 3 on the outside. I'm going to take my coefficients and line them up. Make sure you put new zeros in if you had to. We get a 0 at the end. That was expected. Okay, all right, that's a good thing. If we didn't get a 0 there, we'd be a little concerned. I'm going to decrease from a cubic to a quadratic. And then I'm going to factor this. So my final answer is x plus 6, x plus 1, and don't forget that x minus 3 that was given to you in the beginning. Again, I believe this is able to be factored by grouping method. So if you want to try it off to the side, you can. If it says factor given this piece of information, right, you have to use the given piece of information. So on a test or a quiz, if it says factor using this given information, please do that. Don't use the grouping method. All right, hope you guys found this helpful.